Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Hello, welcome into another edition of the Bmore Baseball Podcast with Mike Bordick. I'm Jerry Coleman. Of course, he's the former 14-year veteran and Orioles Hall of Famer. And Bordy, we're up with brand new content each and every day, courtesy of our intern, Grant, who does a great job. You can find us on X, Instagram, and Facebook at the Bmore Ball Pod. Again, the Bmore Ball Pod. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it right there. And then speaking of YouTube, Bmore Ball Pod is where you want to subscribe and follow us. When you do that, you qualify for a $50 Lido Pizza gift card. Some people have already received theirs. So you're in line once you show us evidence you've subscribed to the podcast. We've reached episode number 12. Bordy will be joined by former Orioles Vice Chairman and COO Joe Foss. We'll also chat about how some of the O's younger players are starting to try and handle adversity for the first time in their careers. And how much worse can it get for the Colorado Rockies? Man, you thought the Orioles were struggling. Good thing you don't live in Denver. And, of course, Dr. Michael Jacobs and our What's Up Doc segment will weigh in on why some stadiums are more prone to injuries than others. But let's bring in our featured guest. He is sponsored by Pappas Seafood. From crab cakes to seafood classics, they'll deliver straight to your door. 4 locations in the Baltimore area, plus nationwide shipping. Order today simply at pappascrabcakes.com. It's former Orioles Vice Chairman and COO Joe Foss. Joe, really appreciate you being here. And let's start with that title you had with the Orioles. That's a rare combination you see today in sports. In fact, I don't know if that combination exists in sports. Is that sort of a title that Peter Angelos created specifically for you?
Well, it was not completely uncommon at the time, but the way Peter had it structured, there was Peter at the top as CEO, chairman and CEO. I was his direct report. And then underneath us, I had all of the business side and worked with the general managers on player contracts. I did not ever, although I was asked, to suggest players, but I didn't feel I had the background on that. So on the reporting relationships, the GMs reported to me, but it was really on the economics of their business side. And then when they were dealing with major player trades or acquisitions, they would talk directly to Peter. And so that was how we were set up.
Well, speaking of Mr. Angelos, unfortunately passing away, maybe fortunately, I know he struggled for a while, but you had a very close relationship with him. And I know he was incredibly influential in the city. He may have been controversial as a baseball owner, but he was a mover and shaker in Baltimore. How did you see him? And can you enlighten some of the fans that maybe don't see him in quite a light?
Peter bought the team in an auction, is well been documented. His primary reason was he felt that local ownership should own the Orioles. And the competition at the time were Bill DeWitt, who was looking at buying the Orioles along with Larry Lucchino and others. But Bill, as at the time, was in Cincinnati and then subsequently bought the St. Louis Cardinals. Peter felt it should be with local ownership. And so the group of minority investors, which included Pam Shriver, Tom Clancy, Wanda Clancy, Steve Jeppe, Jim and Margaret McManus McKay, were all local people. And so Peter had a passionate fiduciary responsibility to not only his co-owners, but to the citizens of Maryland. People never knew the generosity that Peter had. He would make millions of dollars of charitable contributions with the condition that it would be anonymous. And so he would buy a car, for example, for somebody that he learned of or heard of, and nobody ever would know. So he was a unique guy. He was mischaracterized during the labor dispute and the strike in '94 as a union guy. Peter was a guy that, yes, represented union workers, but Peter refused to go along with the concept of replacement players. He felt that that was going to be a disservice to the fans to put a minor league player in a major league uniform on a major league field and call them major leaguers. He thought that that was just fundamentally wrong. And people felt that the reason Peter did not support the walkout was because he was a union guy. And that was the wrong conclusion.
Now, the fallout was twofold. It was the players really loved him supporting their cause, but I guess some of his fellow owners were sort of dissatisfied and disenchanted with that decision, Joe.
That's an understatement. When I went to literally every owners meeting with Peter for 14 years, and there were quarterly owners meetings. And I think it was the second or third one I went to was when they were voting on the replacement player issue. And Peter voted no in the previous one. So when we finally got together as a group, we went into the room and nobody would talk to Peter. No other owner would talk to Peter. They would come and talk to me. And so I was kind of that buffer between the Orioles between the Orioles, the other owners, and Peter. And one of the guys that I knew, having been a banker in Minnesota at one time, was Andy MacPhail. And Andy was with the Cubs at the time, or he was with the Twins at the time, pardon me. And Andy came up and we talked, and that kind of started breaking the ice a little bit with the other owners. And eventually, the owners turned around. We didn't have the replacement players and concluded that Peter was maybe right. They wouldn't say that publicly. But then Bud Selig put Peter on the negotiating committee going forward with the union. And so it was, Jerry, to your point, it was a complete turnaround in the space of about a year and a half.
If I could follow up real quickly, Bordy, is that how Andy MacPhail ended up working for the Orioles?
I would say it was. Peter knew Andy and stayed consistent or friends with Andy until he was named as the general manager.
Go ahead. Andy MacPhail was fascinating to me when he came to the Orioles. Go ahead.
And I believe the first GM that Peter hired.
Well, no. The first.
Oh, I'm sorry. There were a few others in there. I forgot about.
No, there were some important. If you'd like the story, I can tell you a little bit. When Peter bought the ball club, Roland Heeman was the general manager.
Right.
And Roland was the general manager our first year. And one of the stories and Roland had two assistant GMs, Doug Melvin and Frank Robinson. And Johnny Oates was the field manager. And the team just wasn't up to what Peter wanted. So eventually Peter let them go. Doug went to Texas, I believe, for his first stop. Frank, we let go, and we hired Pat Gillick. And so Pat came in for 3 years, and Pat had wanted his own team of assistant general managers. He wanted to bring in or dismiss Frank. And a funny story on that was he went to Peter, he being Pat, and says, I want to let Frank Robinson go, and I want to bring in my own guys. So Peter says fine, and the night before, about 10 o'clock, Peter calls me at home, and he says, I want you to sit with Pat when he dismisses Frank, because A, you've got a Hall of Famer, you've got a black man. I don't want any controversy coming about. I want a witness in the room. So he said, you get a hold of Pat and we'll go through it. So I would always get into the office around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Pat was always in. I went into Pat's office and I said, Peter wants me to sit down when you let Frank go. So I said, here's how I would recommend to do it. When Frank comes in, why don't you have Frank come down to my office? Pat, you can come down to my office. You can deliver the message, and then you can leave, because we knew Frank was going to be upset, and you can leave. So we've got it all scripted out. Frank comes in. Pat calls him, says, Joe wants you to come down to his office. So the two of them come down to my office. They sit down on the chairs. And Pat looks at Frank and says to Frank, Joe's got something to tell you. So I can't say, oh, no, Pat, you're the one that's supposed to, so I have to take it. And very true. And I
Oh my gosh.
And I said to Frank, one of the things that Pat's wanted to do is have his own team of guys in the front office, and you're not going to be part of the future. And so we're going to let you go effective today. So as you can imagine, Frank, who has a temper, just the rocket fuse is lit. And Frank is cursing and angry, and how can you do this to me? And da-da-da-da-da. Finally, Frank takes a breath. Pat gets up and leaves the office. So then Frank continues on, and then Frank says to me, who I had a great relationship with during the time that Roland was there. And Frank says, Joe, he says, and I won't curse, but he's cursing. He says, I know this wasn't your decision, and I'm sorry you had to do it, but I have to be mad at somebody. And so he goes on for about 10 more minutes, and then Frank gets up and leaves. Pat comes back down, and he sits in my office, and he says, well, that went pretty well, didn't you think?
Oh my gosh.
With two Hall of Famers there.
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh my gosh.
But I was literally the guy who fired Frank Robinson.
Unbelievable. You experienced so much. And I don't know. I dare I ask about the Ripken situation when Mike Bordick came in? I mean, what was that like behind closed doors? This could be the first time this has ever been really talked about.
Oh, okay. Well, what was happening behind closed doors was the fact that it was felt that Cal had lost his range, and that we needed to get a shortstop that would have the range and move Cal over to third base. And so, Bordy, that's how that happened. And one of the things that I've always felt is the fans looking at baseball are genuinely very often correct in what they think the move should be, but they don't have all of the facts. So they may come to the right answer or the right conclusion without all of the information. And so there was controversy at the time to bring this, kid from Oakland who grew up in Maine, who played Division III baseball.
No, that was D1, man. Come on.
Oh, well, it looked like Division III. So, yeah, to replace the great Cal Ripken. And that's actually what happened. And I'd like to just slide a little bit, if I can, and take the liberty to talk a little bit about how statistics were used back then when I was first in the game, and how they have been, in my opinion, way overused today. We certainly use statistics. You go back to Earl Weaver, and Earl had his index cards and he used his statistics, but he also used that thing between his eyes, his head, and his brain, and he didn't get over influenced by it. And I unfortunately think that while I believe Mike Elias is a great, great general manager, they have gone overboard on the statistics. And I'll give you a couple for instances. If in the business world, there are studies and profiles and tests that people take to determine their personalities. And you could have a sales personality, for example, that when they sell a product, whatever it is, they say, oh, this is going to make you look younger. This is going to make you lose weight. This is going to make you sell better. Whatever, they point the positive things. The accountants and the statisticians cannot make a decision on a timely basis. They say, I need these 25 things statistically brought to me. You bring it to them and they look at it and then they say, oh, I need another 25 because I just thought of the things that I hadn't thought about before. By the time you go through that process and are picking players, the better players are plucked off first because they haven't made a timely decision. Let me give you an example that I saw the other night. Watching the game, and Ben McDonald's calling the game along with Kevin Brown. And I won't say the pitcher, but they were saying, this guy has the best spin rate, one of the top 2 spin rates of a ball on the staff. His spin rate is 2,000 revolutions per minute. The very next pitch, that spin rate curves to the center of the plate at bell tie, and it's a 3-run home run. That spin rate didn't do a damn thing because the ball was placed where it shouldn't have been placed. Okay, so that is an issue. Now the team has all of these young kids in the front office who are analyzing things that don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And they've stopped using common sense and good judgment to acquire players. Think about where we are today in the season. I don't know, we're 8 games under 500, something like that. I did back of the envelope math the other day. The Orioles have to play 600 baseball for the rest of the season to get a record above 85 wins. 85 wins. That might get them to postseason play. Then you stop and think about our pitching staff. How are you going to dig out of the hole and yet get above it with a pitching staff that's not going to have either the starters, the relievers to lift us out of that hole? Then you turn to what you mentioned at the start about the young players. How are they going to handle this adversity? They're getting the crap beat out of them, and they're young. They've always been superstars from the time they've been in grammar school all the way up. And they're demoralized because they're now on a team that's losing. How's that combination going to bring the team back to life for the rest of the season? I don't have great hope. Could they statistically? Sure. Do I hope they do? Absolutely. Will it happen? I wouldn't put money on it.
More of the Bmore Baseball podcast coming right up. At Pappas Restaurants, we've been serving up Maryland's best crab cakes for over 5 decades, and now we make it easier than ever to get your favorites. With 4 restaurants and sports bar locations across Harford County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County, you can stop in for fresh seafood, ice-cold drinks, and wall-to-wall TVs. But if you can't make it in, don't worry. We'll bring Pappas to you. Our new state-of-the-art shipping and commissary location on Bel Air Road in Nottingham means you can pick up fresh-made meals or have our famous crab cakes and seafood shipped anywhere in the country. Dine in, pick up, or ship nationwide. However you Pappas, we've got you covered. Order now at pappascrabcakes.com.
I'm retired now, but I was an Orioles home run. Grand slam, actually. Took a sweet ride right into the flag court, and it was awesome. Could be awesome for you, too. If you play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, you could win instantly, or be a contestant of the game and win $500 for being selected, $500 for every Orioles home run, and $5,000 for every grand slam. Sounds like a ball, if you ask me. Enter all season at mdlottery.com.
The Be More Baseball podcast welcomes Relief Shop. Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu, located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop. It's saving season at Lido Pizza. 99-cent refreshing iced teas for spring and summer, or $6 calzones every Tuesday. There are tons of new deals and rewards for everyone, exclusively at LidoPizza.com or on the Lido Pizza app. Lido Pizza, a local legend since 1955, proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time. And now, back to the Be More Baseball podcast.
Because that'll take up another 10 minutes. I want to get back, though, to Peter Angelos and his tenure, because it appeared, Joe, that there was a change in philosophy near the end of his stewardship of the Orioles. In other words, it didn't seem like he was attending as many games near the end when he was able to, nor spending as much money investing in ball players. Was there a change in philosophy after maybe getting burned so many times from Albert Bell to Scott Erickson and so many other contracts that maybe didn't work out?
Jerry, I think it was he stopped coming to as many games because of his pride. He had such enormous pride to be the owner of the Baltimore Orioles. And when he would come into the suite, you could just see it. He was so filled with pride when he would come out. When he stepped out of the inside of the suite to the platform behind the chairs, he would look around and you could see him welling up with the pride. I don't remember, to be honest, Jerry, if there was any conscious change on spending money on players. I honestly don't remember if that ever was a factor. I don't think it was.
Well, the Albert Bell contract was so out of whack, and of course, the Mets fired big time, and he recouped some of the money. I don't know how much involvement you had in that.
I had a lot on that. First of all, The reason Peter went after Albert was because George Steinbrenner wanted Albert, and they got into a bidding war behind the scenes. So when Albert finally selected the Orioles, Peter calls me and he says, "I've just signed Albert Bell." And I went, "Oh dear." And there is a guy that I think probably still provides a lot of the insurance programs for the major league players. His name is John Scotti, and John had an insurance agency that focused on players. So I called John and I said, "We've signed Albert Bell. I need a life insurance policy on Albert," because I thought, given Albert's demeanor, somebody was more likely to kill him than, you remember? I mean, he would be driving on Halloween, racing kids in his car off of his property. I thought somebody was going to kill the man. And so John says, "I'll sell you an insurance policy, and I've got a disability policy. It's got a big deductible, but I'll sell you a disability policy as well." So I talked to Peter about it. We did both. And the disability policy essentially was you lose the first year of the player's guaranteed salary is the disability. But from that point on, you collect. So we ended up collecting when Albert hip went out and everything, his disability policy, and thank God we never had to collect on the life insurance policy.
Yeah.
What a job by you to get that disability included. That saved the club millions.
Jerry, it was just damn luck. I mean, I didn't even know they had a disability policy until John Scotti told me about it.
Hey, Joe, I got a question here just to kind of get off and on to new ownership. Okay. Mr. Rubenstein now taking over Orioles ownership. And he too, like Mr. Angelos, a local guy that wanted to keep it here in Baltimore. But times have changed a little bit. Obviously, the price of the Orioles went up. How do you kind of foresee how Mr. Rubenstein is going to afford players nowadays? And on top of that, the future of baseball is going to be a question in 2026. So the collective bargaining agreement, I know that this could last another hour to talk about, but maybe your thoughts on that.
Mike, I think those are two really important topics I'd like to touch on if I can. First of all, when I got to the team early on, we had a advanced scout named Deacon Jones. And the advanced scout would go ahead of the team to the next two teams we were going to play and scout them before we got there. And Deacon comes up to me within the first few weeks of me being on board, and he says, "Joe," he said, "I have been in baseball for 40 years. I have never gotten a ring." He said, "I tell you that because of how difficult it is to win a World Series." And I never forgot that. So as you look at David Rubenstein, I think he comes in with the same passion that Peter did. I want to bring and intend to bring my Oriole fans a world championship. I think this season is showing him what Deacon Jones said is very, very hard, right? So the challenge is going to be twofold. One fold is, how are you going to get the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, for example, to give up some of their outside sources of money to be able to fund these players and allow the teams like the Orioles, like the Twins, like, St. Louis, all these other, I'll call it normal revenue teams, to have the money. So there's got to be some form of controls on the ownership's outside resources to come to pay the players. Then you got the players and the players union, and they've got union members that are looking for them to get the most money for them. They're not going to just roll over and say, oh, well, I can see that the owners, don't want to pay us as much. They're not going to just roll over. And so I am hoping that there can be a negotiated settlement with some kind of salary restrictions on the big teams and on the big owners. David Rubenstein has come out and said, I'd like to see a salary cap like they have in the NFL. Something like that is not wrong. Will they get to something like that? I hope so.
Good luck. Good luck with that association. Hey, Joe, we got time for a few more quick questions. One I wanted to throw out at you regarding negotiations and settlements and all that. Many years ago, I mean, when DC was trying to get a baseball team, you and Peter, the Orioles, fought it tooth and nail. You warned about the impact it would have on attendance and television and all that. That's all come to fruition, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And I was at every negotiating session with Peter during that. And what I think might interest the fans starts with the fact that the teams are called a franchise. Okay, no different than McDonald's has a franchise. Chick-fil-A has franchises. Okay, restaurants are known for franchise business. What does that mean? You have a defined territory where no other Chick-fil-A or McDonald's can come into your defined geographic territory. What Major League Baseball didn't anticipate was that was completely violating our television territory. And our television territory essentially went from Harrisburg down to Charlotte and everything in between out to West Virginia. The mistake that Bud made was that he thought Peter would be reasonable. And Peter was not going to be reasonable. And why was Peter not going to be reasonable? First of all, he had a fiduciary responsibility to his co-owners on the team. Secondly, we knew that it was going to take fans from us. Prior to all this, as we were marketing, we knew exactly what zip code the fans were buying tickets from. So back before all this started, 30% of our fans had DC, Northern Virginia zip codes. So we knew that a good portion of that, they weren't going to drive up to Baltimore like they had in the past. They were going to stay and go to Washington. So we negotiated to the deal that was eventually struck and was hated by some of the Washington Post reporters about how unfair we were in the economic split, where we got all of the bottom line profit for the first 5 years, and then it was diminished 1% a year to year 29, where it would end up 66% to the Orioles and 33% to the Nationals. We did that because we had an economic right to that money. And then we said, in order to be fair, since each team is now part of Masson, each team will get the same annual rights fees, the identical rights fees that went up. And then after 5 years, they would renegotiate. But they had to be negotiated and approved by a committee of Major League Baseball owners that would have like amount of rights fees for like size markets. Well, at the time, the Nationals owners said, well, we want to compare ourselves to Houston. We want to compare ourselves to Los Angeles. Well, those weren't comparable markets. The comparable markets were Minnesota and Philadelphia and St. Louis and the like. And so that created some divisiveness between the owners' ownership and the Nationals ownership that is just now being resolved. But it's going to affect the size of the contracts the players are eventually going to get. Is going to because the future is not going to be cable, where everybody, whether you watch the games or not, pays for it, and it's going to be streaming.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be the future for at least the foreseeable future for the next decade or so. So I think, Mike, to your question, and Jerry, to yours, I think it's going to be. And one thing I should have said: the player's contract with Major League Baseball ends at the end of the 26th season. So this is going to be a collision that hopefully won't be killing the sport.
Fascinating. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Very informative.
More of the Bmore Baseball Podcast coming right up. Take a swing at a healthier mouth and a better-looking smile with my dental team at Catonsville Dental Care. Catonsville Dental Care is a winning team of caring dental professionals who treat you like family. You will love their clean, friendly office where your comfort and care are their top priorities. Catonsville Dental Care has more than 2,000 five-star Google reviews and received many awards, such as Top Dentist and Top Workplace. Catonsville Dental Care accepts most insurances and offers convenient hours before or after work, and some Saturdays too. Mention the Jerry Special for your $149 new patient visit, or receive $500 off your Invisalign treatment. So get off the bench. Call Catonsville Dental Care today. Everyone knows Greenmount Station in Hampstead, but did you know that at Greenmount Station you can bet 7 days a week just like you're at the track? With in-person teller windows and state-of-the-art touchscreen kiosks. And with Greenmount Station's brand new Bet Park Sportsbook, you can bet on all other sports as well, wherever you are in Maryland. Spreads, money lines, live bets, props, parlays, and teasers. The BetParks Maryland mobile app is now live for Apple and Android devices, so you'll never miss your next big score. Just search for BetParks MD in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. At Heller Coates, we ensure peace of mind. Our mission: to educate, design, and protect, ensuring that you get the right insurance at the right price. Whether it's home and auto, life, disability, long-term care, or employee benefits, our deep understanding of personal and business life cycles allows us to tailor solutions just for you. We specialize in strategic insurance planning for those who value protection. Ready to take the next step? Get in touch for no obligation 360 policy review at insurance@hellercoates.com. They say it all comes back to your roots, right? At Grassroots, high-quality cannabis is in their nature. From soil to soul, their passion for cannabis and community inspires everything they do. Try your favorite strains from their cultivar library of top-shelf flower, pre-rolls, and concentrates. Whether you're cheering from the stands or chanting for the O's at home, their crafted flower helps you curate the perfect game day. Ask for Grassroots Cannabis at your favorite dispensary in Maryland.
All right, let's move on, Bordy. Wow, that was fun.
So
Four
good.
Birds, yeah, very cool. Sponsored by our friends over at the Maryland Lottery. Hey, playing the Maryland Lottery responsibly means knowing what's true and what's not about your favorite games. Learn the facts and the myths at mdlottery.com. That's mdlottery.com. And as always, please play responsibly. So we mentioned during the tease, and Joe alluded to it, I want to talk about some of the younger players on the Orioles roster dealing with adversity really for the first time, from Adley, Gunnar, Jackson, and Jordan. Bordy, you dealt with adversity at some point during your career. Yeah. Very, very seldom, I'm sure, but you handle it. I mean, with so few veterans around, how do they approach it there in Birdland?
Well, now listen, any athlete, and I know we hear about these number one picks being pampered and spoiled all through their lives. Their whole life they've been in sports, so they understand adversity. It's just part of it. There's no way you're a silver-spooned athlete all the way to professional baseball or football, whatever you play, and not have experienced failure and adversity. It happens to everybody. So I think they're all kind of used to it. The problem is when it happens at the major league level and there's no escaping. In the minor leagues, the numbers don't really matter. in the big leagues, everything matters. Everything's under a microscope. So when you're struggling, everybody knows about it. So you have to really find a way to internalize it. Now, back in the day, we used to have roundtables after games. And I'm not saying that's the best way to deal with adversity, but it certainly helps to share your emotions and actually talk about a game. I'm not sure that happens as much nowadays. So guys, sure, they might share their experiences and things like that, but I don't know if they collectively talk about the game and really kind of hash things out, what happened, and help them learn from their experiences, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. You have to experience this stuff to actually know how to go through it. And I think these guys kind of have collectively, each one of them have struggled coming up to the big leagues. So they've had their share of adversity. The problem is, as a team, when collectively everybody relies on their young superstars and the whole world knows it, when they struggle, they're feeling the pressure now. So it's going to be up to them to somehow get themselves out of it. And the key is, and you don't hear a lot about this nowadays, but for old school baseball players, routine to your preparation, your work habits on a daily basis were paramount. It was almost like you better develop a proper work routine or you're going to struggle forever. And if you don't have that routine, there's nothing to fall back on, nothing to go to simplify your game. I think sometimes, like Joe Foss alluded to with the analytics stuff, sometimes there's so much information, it's hard to bring it back and simplify. And that's why baseball is so special, I think. You can simplify the game, barrel to ball, run hard down the first base line, catch the ball, throw to first. You got to simplify it if you want to have success. And I think these guys have to just experience that and come back to play a better brand of baseball. I think it's going to happen for these guys, but it's certainly a tough stretch. They'll all deal with their own adversity. Some guys will drop off, though. I mean, that's just part of the pecking order, man. This is a merit-based game. If you don't do it, you will fall away.
Yeah, I don't think there's a round table around in the clubhouse. I just think they look at their iPad and see what they did wrong.
I think so.
All right, let's head beyond Baltimore, our national and sometimes international perspective. It's all brought to you by Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary with 700 plus unique menu items and home delivery available for medical patients only from Relief Shop. All right, so despite firing their manager since our last episode, the Colorado Rockies are a legit threat to surpass the 2024 White Sox as the worst team in MLB history. They're off to just an atrocious start. And it's not like you can tank for a great pick. The NBA has it right now with that Fugazi lottery. And we saw what happened to a team like the Wizards who tried to tank, and they don't end up with the top pick. But Colorado has the worst 40-game start since, well, the 1988 Orioles, which was record-setting. They began 0-21. Then they fire Bud Black a day after losing by 20 runs after a win. Just a weird scenario out there in the high altitude.
Yeah, well, I'll say. And unfortunately, I think when they legalized cannabis, they've been stuck back in that day because they have not really moved as an organization. They haven't done anything to really keep up with the times. They're still living in the 90s. Now, I personally think the 90s was a great time to play baseball. But man, oh man, has the game changed. And unfortunately, the Rockies haven't really evolved with the game. Just from the articles I've read recently, I mean, they don't have the analytic department. They don't have the pitching kind of scrutiny that other organizations, really every other organization has now. So they are certainly like in the stone ages of baseball, and it's going to take a while for them to turn things around. I think the owner still wants to keep things status quo. He doesn't want to shake things up too much, but it's going to have to happen. I think Colorado is kind of unique. They're very similar to the Orioles in that it's an attractive place to go. People love to go watch baseball out there. Unfortunately, the product just hasn't been living up to what it should be. It's a tough place to play with the air. I mean, the pitchers are struggling like that. They have had some tough injuries, but there is no winning on the horizon either. Their analytic department, their development department, really everything is way behind, and it's going to take a while for them to catch up. Look how long it took the Orioles. They had to lose, for 4 straight years or longer in order to get to where they are, and now they're even still in question. So it's not an easy task, but they got to take one step at a time to redevelop that whole organization.
Yeah, certainly not Bud Black's fault. He was the
No.
winningest manager in franchise history, was there for 9 years. And man, they didn't do him right at the end. All right.
Yeah.
We'll do the doc right. Let's bring in the doc. It's our What's Up Doc segment, sponsored by the Baltimore Chamber Orchestra. Visit thebco.org to buy tickets and learn a whole lot more. Doc had a great concert at his house over the weekend.
Yeah,
I know
he did.
Bordick was there and Joe Foss was there, and my invitation was lost in the mail, or I may have been in Sarasota. Doc, let's get to one of the things that makes baseball unique. You don't have these cookie cutter stadiums where they're all alike. It's not like that in a lot of sports, but in baseball, it's definitely different. So there may be stadiums out there, I guess, that may be considered more injury prone than others because of the way, I don't know, the outfield was constructed, or a poor infield that wasn't in great condition. What can you tell us about the variety here of baseball ballparks? And maybe from your experience, some are more dangerous than others.
Well, needless to say, there's the obvious. Some fields don't have much padding. If you have ivy and brick walls in Wrigley Park, you're certainly going to have to think twice before you crush into that. As you saw last week, one of the Cincinnati players broke his arm when he crashed into the wall in Atlanta. So they don't have much there. And as Mike can confirm, some of these stadiums at Fenway Park is crazy that have essentially no foul territory. When you're chasing the ball near the line, you got to think 3 times. There's no warning track, so that's difficult. And I'd like Mike's opinion on it. I remember when I went to the Kingdome for the playoffs in the 90s, that track was horrendous. I mean, there were seams. There were seams in the outfield. Some of the players changed our shoe wear. There were holes in there. I know they unzipped and zipped it for multiple sports. So they had horrible turf. Some of the turf fields are notoriously hard, and you'll see a lot of times. I think Toronto must be hard because you'll see players with back issues will frequently be left off one of a 3-game road trip match to keep them off the turf there. And so and of course there are the stadiums with the funky dimensions, again, like Fenway, where the outfield goes straight back at a certain point. And if you're not used to it, it can be tricky when you're chasing a foul ball and your head's down. So obviously, padding is important. The makeup of the turf now with artificial turf can be a problem. Obviously, the Kingdome's been demolished. And again, the stadiums don't always pad the sidewalls. And that could be a major issue when you're heading for a foul ball, particularly at a key point in the game. I'm curious, Mike, I thought the turf in Seattle was horrendous. Was that my imagination?
That old school turf, man, was some of the worst stuff to ever play on. It was so bad on the human body. And what gets me is, Major League Baseball cares so much about keeping their players safe. They've completely obliterated the integrity of the game with some of the rules. No breaking up double plays, no running over catcher. And they won't pad a brick wall in center field or somehow come up with padding on a metal wall at Fenway Park. It blows me away. It just blows me away. They continue to do that. I'm going to change subject a little bit, Doc. First of all, you are an incredible piano player, so I enjoyed it over the weekend. But I'm going to move on to Jordan Westburg and his hamstring. And I'm going to throw a little old school in there because I feel like my whole career I played with a bad hamstring. When I was young, I went in for treatment, and they basically said, can you play or can't you? And I said, well, I want to play. And I felt like I dealt with it, honestly, my whole career. How bad does a hamstring have to be to keep a guy out and miss his, intended time to come back and all of a sudden extend it a little bit more?
Well, there's certainly more cooks in the kitchen right now, as you well know. First of all, rule 1 is if the player says, I can't play, he can't play.
All right.
I mean, that's out. Now, if Westburg was Big Poppy or somebody as a DH, or we all know the Kirk Gibson picture, if you're just a crushing hitter and you can't run, but you can swing, you're not going to beat that many balls anyway. Obviously, as an infielder or position player, Westburg has to conclude himself that he can play. If there's a difference where the player says, I think I can play, but maybe his agent and his team doesn't want him to play for all the other external reasons, it gets complicated. Certainly, there's a point where the medical staff will say, I really don't think he should play. You can miss a whole season for a bad hamstring injury. And if you're at the point where you think you could turn a grade 1 that hopefully will be better in 2 to 3 weeks into a grade 3 where you could be out 3 months, at some point the staff has to step up. We're early in the year. Obviously, the team needs help because we're struggling, regrettably, but we're still early in the year. Many teams do make the playoffs from where we are. We're expecting pitching to come back. So I think this is still a far-sighted approach. And, of course, today you have the analytics of medicine in the MRI machine. In the old days, you talk to the player, you squeeze their thigh, the trainer watches them run, and you make a decision. Now you have a machine that puts up a picture. And like I've said several times, the MRIs and the imaging lags behind how you feel. But when you see a bunch of changes on the MRI, the player and his team, agent and whatnot will be somewhat leery. Everybody's careful. We have an analytically based team. You know, in the old days, I hate to use that term, I sound like my father, but in the old days, you know, Richie and I'd be down in training with Pat Gillick would come down and say, when can Bordick play? We'd say, we think you'll have him in 3 days. He'd say, let me know when he can play. Okay. In today's world, you know, you have a toothache, you know, Mike calls a Zoom meeting. Okay. At the Zoom meeting, you go over the x-rays and then Mike will say, well, what do other docs do? It's like every time, to some degree, I've over exaggerated, of course, but I used to say every time somebody burps, we're having a meeting over it. So it's no longer me, Richie, the player working it out, telling Pat what's going on. Everything is a meeting now. And everything is, well, we need more information. I think analytics, I think Joe minimized analytics to a degree. We obviously need analytics. As you said, Colorado is analytics poor, but it's where you fit it in. But you need analytics in medicine, but we can get overdosed on some of that stuff. And like I said, Mike has been so proactive with pitchers. I always felt we kept DL Hall under wraps too long because his imaging was so laggy and we wanted to protect him. I remember at one meeting I said, look, the guy's got to go out and pitch. Even if he feels fine, everything looks good. I can't wait for this MRI anymore. But again, we had a bunch of meetings over it. So I'm sure he did his sequential process to get off the hamstring. I'm more used to, you know, Richie and Ebel's way of doing it. I'm sure it's similar to what we're using now, but at some point things went backwards, and that's where we are. But regrettably, you can't take the analytics out of it. And the player, you know, if we were in the playoffs, if we were late in the year, I'm sure you would take more liberties with doing this. And I always laugh when I work with Dr. Curl. You know, she's always complaining our baseball guys are soft. I go, Leanne, your guys play 30 minutes once a week, okay? Our guys play every day, 30 minutes once a week. You're not even playing both sides of the game. It's not – football's violent, but you're not in that many plays, right, Mike? I mean, we're out here 162 times plus postseason plus, you know, so it's a different point of view. I do have to comment on a few things from Joe's wonderful talk. Number one, you will find this hilarious, but when you came and when the word was that the junior was losing some of his range and his unbelievably compulsive and accurate assessment, Junior went on wherever you went back then and delivered at least 2 studies that showed he had the second best range in baseball.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That he still had the second best range in baseball.
Yeah.
And that he was not losing range.
Okay.
And I can also tell you that Albert Bell, I had clued into his hips when we signed him. And I said, Peter, they're going to lynch us if we don't sign Albert, because he had some early signs of what was going on. And we were up in the box. It was me and Sid Thrift and Peter watching the game, and Albert was clearly struggling. And Sid was going ballistic because he didn't want him on his team, but we had his big contract. And Scotty had given us the insurance. And in one of those priceless moments, I just looked at the two of them, and I didn't exactly have a good relationship with Sid. And I said, guys, I can make Albert disappear just like that. And they looked at me like I was nuts. I said, I can make Albert disappear. And they said, do it. So we got Albert. We x-rayed his hips, and we examined him. We sent him for second opinion, and it was clear he had significant changes there that would limit him. And Albert initially still refused to do it. And I remember Brady came up to me and said, you're nuts, Doc. You're telling me Albert can't play? And the next spring, Albert couldn't get out of the batter's box. And Brady came up to me and says, I can't believe you knew what you were talking about. And Albert did realize that he couldn't play. And I will also say, I never had a problem with Albert. He was quiet. He minded his own business. He always did what we asked. He was perfectly fine. I know Terry was with him, his twin brother.
Well, you were in the minority, Doc. I'll say that. We've run out of time. I appreciate it. So, again, thank you so much, Doc. And thanks to our sponsors. We love them all. And please go out and support them.
At Heller Coates, we ensure peace of mind. Our mission, to educate, design, and protect, ensuring that you get the right insurance at the right price. Whether it's home and auto, life, disability, long-term care, or employee benefits, our deep understanding of personal and business life cycles allows us to tailor solutions just for you. We specialize in strategic insurance planning for those who value protection. Ready to take the next step? Get in touch for a no-obligation 360 policy review at insurance@hellercoates.com. They say it all comes back to your roots, right? At Grassroots, high-quality cannabis is in their nature. From soil to soul, their passion for cannabis and community inspires everything they do. Try your favorite strains from their cultivar library of top-shelf flower, pre-rolls, and concentrates. Whether you're cheering from the stands or chanting for the O's at home, their crafted flower helps you curate the perfect game day. Ask for Grassroots Cannabis at your favorite dispensary in Maryland.
What's Up, Doc is sponsored by the Baltimore Chamber Orchestra. Baltimore's second orchestra finishes its season with Mother's Day Mozart and Friends, featuring concertmaster Audrey Wright and guest conductor Norman Wynn on Sunday, May 11th at 3 p.m. in Goucher College's Kraushar Auditorium. Visit thebco.org to buy tickets and learn more. That's thebco.org for Mother's Day Mozart and Friends on Sunday, May 11th.
Take a swing at a healthier mouth and a better-looking smile with my dental team at Catonsville Dental Care. Catonsville Dental Care is a winning team of caring dental professionals who treat you like family. You will love their clean, friendly office, where your comfort and care are their top priorities. Catonsville Dental Care has more than 2,000 five-star Google reviews and received many awards, such as Top Dentist and Top Workplace. Catonsville Dental Care accepts most insurances and offers convenient hours, before or after work, and some Saturdays, too. Mention the Jerry Special for your $149 new patient visit, or receive $500 off your Invisalign treatment. So get off the bench. Call Catonsville Dental Care today.
I'm retired now, but I was an Orioles home run. Grand slam, actually. Took a sweet ride right into the flag court, and it was awesome. Could be awesome for you, too, if you play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery. You could win instantly, or be a contestant of the game and win $500 for being selected, $500 for every Orioles home run, and $5,000 for every grand slam. Sounds like a ball, if you ask me. Enter all season at mdlottery.com.
At Pappas Restaurants, we've been serving up Maryland's best crab cakes for over 5 decades, and now we make it easier than ever to get your favorites. With 4 restaurants and sports bar locations across Harford County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County, you can stop in for fresh seafood, ice-cold drinks, and wall-to-wall TVs. But if you can't make it in, don't worry. We'll bring Pappas to you. Our new state-of-the-art shipping and commissary location on Bel Air Road in Nottingham means you can pick up fresh-made meals or have our famous crab cakes and seafood shipped anywhere in the country. Dine in, pick up, or ship nationwide. However you Pappas, we've got you covered. Order now at pappascrabcakes.com. It's saving season at Lido Pizza. 99-cent refreshing iced teas for spring and summer, or $6 calzones every Tuesday. There are tons of new deals and rewards for everyone, exclusively at LidoPizza.com or on the Lido Pizza app. Lido Pizza, a local legend since 1955, proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles. Everyone knows Greenmount Station in Hampstead, but did you know that at Greenmount Station you can bet 7 days a week just like you're at the track? With in-person teller windows and state-of-the-art touchscreen kiosks. And with Greenmount Station's brand new Bet Park Sportsbook, you can bet on all other sports as well, wherever you are in Maryland. Spreads, money lines, live bets, props, parlays, and teasers. The Bet Parks Maryland mobile app is now live for Apple and Android devices, so you'll never miss your next big score. Just search for Bet Parks MD in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week. Only at Relief Shop. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
Thanks to also senior executive producer Chip Franklin for putting this latest episode together. Chip sometimes is a bit forgetful, except when it comes to his paycheck. Remarkably, he never forgets that. Until next time, be real, be kind, and make sure to be back next week. It's another episode of the Bmore Baseball Podcast.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.